She was a poor girl, desperate to save her mother's life. He was a billionaire's son, forced to marry a stranger to end a deadly family rumor. He swore to make her suffer, until one passionate night in a hotel room, they had no idea they were already husband and wife. What happens after the one-night stand? Find out in this explosive tale of secrets, fate, and forbidden love. Welcome to King of Aftertales. Please subscribe to our channel and give this video a thumbs up. It means the world to us. Dad, this is insane! Lawson's voice echoed off the walls of the Lawson family mansion. Who still marries a wife for their son in this 21st century? His face was red. His chest was rising and falling fast. He had just gotten home from work, still wearing his black suit and shoes, and now he was standing in the middle of the large living room, shaking with anger. Chief Alfred Lawson, his father, didn't flinch. He sat calmly on the armrest of the leather chair, holding a glass of brandy in his hand, like everything was normal. If you refuse to marry, then we will marry for you, his father said, taking a slow sip. Lawson turned sharply to his mother. Mom, are you a part of this madness too? Mrs. Lawson didn't answer. She looked away. She couldn't meet his eyes. Lawson's voice dropped, but it was shaking with rage. Grandpa, say something. You can't possibly think this is right. You've always been the voice of reason in this house. The old man sitting in the corner raised his head slowly. His voice was low and steady. You are the only son in this family, Lawson. You carry the family name. You carry the legacy. We won't sit back and watch you destroy it. Lawson took a step back, stunned. So this is it? This is what this family has become? You all sat down, picked a girl behind my back, and decided I should marry her? You have refused to bring anyone home, his father said sharply. No girlfriend, no fiancé, not even rumors. People are starting to ask questions, and we are tired of being the joke in society. Lawson slammed his hand on the glass table. You found a random village girl and married her off to me without my knowledge? She is not random, his father snapped. She is quiet, respectful, and humble. The kind of woman who won't bring shame to this family. I don't even know her name, Lawson shouted. His mother looked up with tears in her eyes. She's a good girl, Lawson. People are laughing at me. They say maybe you don't like women, that maybe you're hiding something. Please, just prove them wrong. Just give this a chance. Lawson stared at her, shocked. So you think marrying a stranger will make me look better? What about what I want? Does anyone in this house care how I feel? His father stood up now. His voice was loud and final. This is not a debate. If you reject this marriage, you will lose everything. Your shares in the company, your inheritance, the properties in your name, everything. We will hand it all over to a cousin who is ready to build this legacy. Lawson stood frozen. For a moment, he didn't say a word. He looked around at the people in the room, his family, the people who were supposed to protect him, and he saw nothing but pressure, silence, and betrayal. Then he picked up his car key from the side table and walked out of the mansion without another word. His mother called his name. Lawson! He didn't turn back. Outside, his driver ran to open the SUV, but Lawson waved him off and jumped into the driver's seat. He slammed the door, started the engine, and sped out of the compound like a man escaping a trap. Inside the car, his personal assistant, David, was already seated in the front passenger seat. He had been waiting quietly, but now he could feel the tension in the air. Sir, he started carefully. Were you aware of this nonsense? Lawson asked without looking at him. No, sir, David said quickly. I only heard little things. They said the family picked a girl from a village, a poor girl with no name, very quiet, no drama. I don't know her name or anything. Lawson laughed bitterly, gripping the steering wheel tighter. Of course, a poor helpless girl with no voice, someone they can control, someone who can't fight back. He was silent for a while, breathing hard. Find out who she is, he said coldly. I want her full name, a photo, her background, everything. I want her watched. David nodded quietly. Yes, sir. When Lawson got to his own mansion, he threw the car door open and marched inside. He threw his suit jacket onto the couch, pulled off his tie, and paced the living room. He was boiling. He had never felt this angry before in his life. He had always been in control, always calm, but now his own family had crossed the line. He picked up his phone and called David again. Any update? Not yet, sir. I've reached out to someone. I should get something by morning. Good, Lawson said, his voice low and dangerous. Because if this girl thinks she's about to live like a queen under my name, she's in for a rude awakening. He ended the call and stood by the large glass window, looking out at the quiet night. His heart was beating fast. She wants to play wife, he whispered to himself. I'll show her what hell feels like. Across the city, in a small hospital room filled with the smell of antiseptic and the soft beeping of machines, a young woman held a pen in her shaking hand. Her mother was asleep on the hospital bed beside her, weak and pale. She looked down at the legal documents in front of her. Marriage contract. 2 years. She didn't know the man's name. She hadn't seen his face. But she had no choice. The money would save her mother's life. She signed, and with that one signature, her quiet life was gone. What she didn't know was that her husband had already declared war. It had been 3 days since Amara signed the marriage contract. She hadn't seen her husband. She hadn't heard his voice. She didn't even know if he lived in the same city. Amara sat on the edge of the massive king-size bed inside a room that looked like something from a magazine. The floor was polished marble. The curtains were thick and gold. The chandelier above sparkled like stars. But nothing felt warm. Nothing felt like home. She wore a soft robe the maids gave her, but her feet were bare. Her hands were resting in her lap. She had not gone downstairs all day. There was nowhere to go. No one to talk to. Only the maids walked around quietly, offering her food and calling her madam. Every time she asked about her husband, the answer was the same. Mr. Lawson is busy. She stood up slowly and walked across the cold floor to the tall window. She pushed the curtain slightly and looked out. The compound was wide and quiet. Security men walked around. A black SUV was parked beside the fountain, but the house itself felt empty. She let the curtain fall back into place and turned to face the mirror. Her face looked different. Her eyes looked older than her age. Her cheeks looked tired. She hadn't laughed in weeks. She hadn't smiled properly since her mother's last surgery. This is not a home, she said under her breath. This is a cage with diamonds. She walked back to the bed and sat down again. Her eyes went to the drawer beside the bed, the one that held her contract, the one she signed to save her mother's life. She closed her eyes and the memory came rushing back. A few weeks ago, she had been sitting beside her mother's hospital bed, holding her hand and praying silently. The machines kept beeping. The smell of medicine filled the room. The doctor walked in and said the words that crushed her. We can't continue her treatment without money. Amara had done everything. She worked cleaning jobs, she sold all her clothes, she begged from neighbors. She even approached a woman who used to owe her mother and asked for help. But nothing was enough. Then one evening, her late father's old friend visited her. He was a quiet man in his 50s. He sat down beside her and said something she never imagined. There's a man, he said. He's rich. His family's looking for a quiet girl to marry him. 2 years. Fake marriage. Nothing romantic. Just a contract. Amara blinked, confused. Why me? Because you don't have drama. You don't have noise. You're the kind of girl they want. And they're offering $500,000, $250,000 up front, the rest after 5 years. She stared at him like he had lost his mind. But I don't even know the man. You don't need to. It's just obedience. You sign. You live quietly. You get paid. This will settle you and your mother for life. She hesitated. She thought about the danger, the shame, the fact that she would belong to a man who had no face, no name, no interest in her. But then her mother coughed weakly from the bed, her breathing thin and painful. Amara looked at her and felt her heart break. If I lose her, she whispered, I lose everything. She signed. There was no wedding, only a quiet signing at a legal office with her husband's father's lawyer present. She wore a plain white gown. She was handed a stack of papers and NDAs to sign. Nobody explained anything. They just told her where to sign, and she did. Her hands were shaking. I'm signing my life away, she muttered. When she was done, she was given a check. By the next day, her mother's hospital bills were cleared. A fresh team of doctors came in. Machines were changed. Medications increased. A private nurse was even arranged. Amara cried that day, tears of relief. Then a car came and picked her up. They said they were taking her to the house she would be staying in. That house was this mansion. Back in the present, Amara reached out and picked up a photo frame from the nightstand. It was a portrait of her husband, the only thing in the house that gave her a face to imagine. He was tall, neatly dressed in a gray suit. Handsome, yes, but cold. His eyes looked like they had never smiled in their life. His face looked like he could bark orders without blinking. She stared at the photo. "Wherever you are, stranger, thank you for saving my mother, even if you hate me." She placed the frame back gently and stood up. She tried to find purpose. She offered to help in the kitchen once. The chef smiled politely and said, "Madam, we are paid for that." She tried to water the flowers outside. The gardener ran over and said it wasn't allowed. She couldn't cook. She couldn't clean. She couldn't even open the front gate without permission. She was rich and useless. That night, she sat at the dressing table, opened a small notebook from her handbag, and began to write. No love, no expectations, just obedience. I will endure this marriage for 5 years, then disappear. She closed the book and placed it back in her drawer. Just then, there was a knock at the door. "Madam," a maid said softly, "the driver will take you to see your mother tomorrow." Amara gave a small smile. It was the only time she smiled that day. At least one person in my life still wants me around. She lay on the bed, pulled the blanket over herself, and stared at the ceiling. The house was full of light, but inside her chest everything felt dark. And somewhere in the same city, the man she married, her stranger husband, was already making plans that would change everything. And she had no idea what was coming. Lawson never once set foot inside the mansion his parents gave him and his so-called wife. That word, wife, was a joke to him, a bitter one. He hated everything about the arrangement, the lies, the pressure, the contract, the idea of being tied to some girl he didn't pick, didn't know, didn't love. It made his blood boil. To him, she was just a ghost with a signature, a face he never planned to see. He didn't care what she looked like. He didn't care where she slept or what she wore. As long as she stayed far away and played along, they could both pretend this thing never happened. Every day he got updates from the head maid and the driver. She went to the hospital this morning. She stayed in her room all day. She wore the gown Madam bought her. That was enough. It kept his parents off his neck. That was all he wanted. He had no interest in seeing her. But for Amara, those daily updates were her life. Every morning she dressed in silk, ate alone, read alone, pasted a smile on her face for the staff, and waited for a man who had no intention of coming. The silence in the mansion was worse than prison. It was suffocating. Her days were quiet. Her nights were cold. Even the maids walked around like they were afraid to speak. She wasn't asking for love. She wasn't asking for attention. But 5 months had passed, and he hadn't even shown his face. She didn't know what he sounded like. Did he laugh? Did he walk with a limp? Was he even real? Every time she passed his portrait in the hallway, she stared at the cold eyes in the frame and whispered, "Why did you marry me if you were never going to show up?" She was losing her mind, and one afternoon, something inside her just snapped. "I need to go to the hospital to see my mom," she told the butler. He nodded respectfully. "The driver will be ready in 5 minutes, madam." But she wasn't going to the hospital, not today. Today she was going to disappear. The driver dropped her at the hospital gate. She smiled politely and waved. The second his car turned the corner, she spun around and walked into the busy street, her heart pounding. She had no degree, no work experience, no idea what she was doing. But she knew she needed something to save herself from drowning. She asked around. She knocked on doors. She walked for over an hour in heels. Then finally a woman at a cleaning agency said, "We're short-staffed. Can you start tomorrow?" "Yes," Amara breathed. "Yes, please." The next morning she dressed in a silk blouse and gold earrings. She looked every inch the rich married woman being chauffeured to a private hospital. The driver dropped her off like usual. But this time, she ducked into a small alley behind a food shop and changed her clothes. She wore a cleaning uniform. tied her hair in a bun, pulled the branded face cap low over her eyes. She wore old sneakers, no perfume, no makeup. She folded her silk blouse into a nylon bag, shoved her earrings in her bra, and whispered to herself, "Don't mess this up." And then she went to the company she was posted to. At the company gate, she signed in with the cleaners. Nobody noticed her. Nobody cared. That was perfect. She learned the routine quickly. Mornings were busy. Break time was short. She used her earpiece to block out the gossip. She hid during lunch breaks behind the stairwell. She never gave her real name. She never removed her cap. She never laughed. But her fear grew every day. What if someone recognized her from the mansion? What if a cleaner took a picture? What if a guest mentioned her to the media? She cleaned toilets. She mopped staircases. She wiped glass doors. And every time she heard high heels or a loud voice, she flinched. The whispers began by the second week. "That girl's too quiet. She doesn't even eat with us. She's hiding something." They were right. One Friday morning, while wiping the top floor hallway, she heard footsteps behind her. Fast ones. She didn't turn. She kept wiping. But her heart was hammering. Suddenly, something told her to look up. She raised her head slightly, and her blood ran cold. A tall man in a charcoal gray suit was walking past her. Powerful, sharp. Everyone around him stepped aside. He didn't look at her. He didn't even slow down. But she saw his face clearly, and her chest tightened. He looked familiar. Too familiar. The same cold eyes. The same frame. The same jawline from that portrait in her hallway. Her hands started to shake. Was that number? It couldn't be. He didn't notice her, didn't stop, didn't even glance her way. She lowered her head quickly and faced the wall again. "It's just another rich man," she whispered to herself. "It's not him." But she didn't believe it. After work, she didn't go home. She went to the orphanage. It had become her safe place. As soon as she entered, the children screamed and ran to her. "Auntie Angel!" They hugged her legs, pulled her arms, climbed her lap. She brought snacks, noodles, wipes, new underwear for two of the girls. One of the boys kissed her hand and said, "You're our angel." She felt her eyes sting. She had no one, but they had her. They laughed, danced, told her stories about school. And for a moment, she forgot who she was. She forgot she was a ghost in a fake marriage. She forgot her husband hadn't looked at her once. Until a little girl asked her softly, "Auntie, are you married?" Amira paused. She didn't know how to answer. "I think so," she whispered, and the child blinked, nodded, and ran off. Amara sat quietly under the mango tree and watched the sunset. "I think so." That's all she could say, because her life belonged to a stranger who didn't know her face, and her heart belonged to nobody. And somewhere in a penthouse office, that same stranger had passed her in a hallway and hadn't even blinked. But soon, he would. It had been 2 years. 2 whole years since Amara married a man who never showed up. Not once. No calls, no messages, no visits. Nothing. He didn't care where she lived, what she wore, or how she was doing. At first, she used to wait. She'd sit near the stairs or stare at the gate like a lost puppy, thinking, maybe today he'll come. He never came. Then she got angry, not at him, at herself, for hoping. Now, she didn't care again. She just wanted her check. Her mother was out of the hospital, living in a small rented apartment Amara paid for herself. She was healthy. That was what mattered. Amara stopped working at the cleaning company after 6 months. Too risky. She started working with NGOs quietly, took up a few training classes, learned makeup, tailoring, even small digital skills. She told herself, "You may not have a degree, but you won't be empty." That was how she survived. Quiet, hidden, a ghost bride in a borrowed life. Until one morning, a knock changed everything. She had just finished her bath and was tying her towel when the maid entered. "Madam, something came for you." Amara turned from the mirror, reached for the cream envelope with red wax, and sat at her vanity. She opened it slowly. First page, second page, then her eyes froze. Divorce papers, signed, final. No note, no explanation. Her heart dropped. She stared at the bottom of the last page. Lawson David Lawson. That was it. That was how her marriage ended. Not even a phone call. Not even a fake apology. She was quiet for a long time. She didn't cry. She didn't move. She just sat there. So this was how 5 years ended. She went to the garden and sat on a plastic chair near the flowers, divorce papers in hand. "It's finally over," she whispered. She should have been smiling. Instead, her chest felt empty. "Was I that undesirable?" she muttered. "Not even once? Not even by mistake?" She looked down at the papers again, then picked a pen and signed her name. Done. She would send it back, collect her money, and forget this chapter of her life ever existed. Later that day, she called her lawyer. "I've signed. Let me know when the balance drops. I'll leave once it's cleared." "Yes, ma'am. Expect it within the week." She ended the call and opened her notepad. Plan 1, buy a house for Mom. Plan 2, register her business. Plan 3, go back to school finally. Plan 4, maybe, just maybe, try real love. The kind that calls, the kind that laughs. By evening, she picked up her phone and called Lola. The moment Lola answered, Amara didn't waste time. "I'm free," she said. "Free how?" Lola asked. "I'm divorced." Lola screamed so loud it echoed through the speaker. "Yay! Are you serious? Girl, you're officially back on the market?" Amara laughed quietly. "Finally. You mean you've been somebody's wife all this time and never even saw the man's nose? My goodness, I told you that marriage was a business transaction." "I know," Amara said, "and now the business is over. What are we doing tonight?" "Something light." "Light," Lola cut in. "Forget it. We're celebrating. You just came back from a 2-year silent retreat. I'm kidnapping you. Dress nice." That evening she wore a simple green dress, ponytail, light gloss, small earrings. No extra effort, just neat. But when she looked in the mirror, even she had to admit, she looked good. Peace had started touching her face. She folded the divorce papers, placed them neatly in her bag. "After tonight, I'll send these to his family and disappear." They met at a rooftop restaurant in Victoria Island. As soon as Lola saw her, she whistled. "See, babe, now? You sure say that man no-go regret leaving you?" "Too late," Amara replied. "He already did." They ordered food, drinks, took photos, laughed, toasted. "To freedom," Lola said. "To madness," Amara replied. After an hour, Lola leaned forward. "Okay, enough of this gentle dinner. I know a bar." "Lola, my friend is the bouncer." "We won't queue. Big speakers. Live DJ. Real Lagos madness." Amara smiled faintly. "I don't know." "A beg," Lola cut in. "For 2 years you've been eating plantain chips on velvet cushions. Tonight you'll dance. Let the Lagos breeze slap you. Let a stranger toast you. You deserve it." Amara paused for a second, then stood up. "Let's go!" Lola screamed. "Now we're talking." They walked out of the restaurant, heels clicking, arms linked, and as they stepped into the Lagos night, Amara didn't know she was walking toward the man she once married, the man who would finally notice her and fall for her. Without knowing they had already shared the same last name, the crowd outside the club was wild. Horn blaring, girls posing for selfies, men adjusting their chains, photographers flashing, and security pushing back the crowd like they were holding gold behind the doors. Amara stood still for a moment, staring at the tall building covered in neon lights, the sound of a piano thumping from inside. She held her clutch tighter. "I don't think I should go in," she said, shifting uncomfortably in her silver heels. Lola scoffed. "Babe, shut up. It's one night to forget that useless paper and that ghost of a husband, one night to just breathe." Before Amara could reply, Lola grabbed her hand and marched straight toward the entrance like she owned the place. The bouncer at the gate frowned for a second, but when Lola flashed him a wicked smile and whispered something into his ear, he stepped aside without a word. They walked in, and just like that, Amara stepped into a different world. The air was thick with perfume, heat, and the smell of expensive alcohol. Purple and red lights cut across the room in flashes. On the dance floor, bodies moved like waves. No rules, no shame, just sweat and rhythm. Booths lined the sides, packed with men in designer shirts throwing money like paper. Amara blinked, stunned. "Are you sure this is legal?" she whispered. Lola grinned and dragged her to a private corner, a VIP booth. She tapped a guy in black and said, "Table 12. This is my girl's freedom party. Let her breathe." They sat. Almost immediately, 2 drinks landed on the table. One yellow, one pink, both sparkling. "What's this?" Amar asked, eyeing the drink suspiciously. "Joy," Lola replied, taking hers like water. "Now take a sip and stop acting like a village girl." Amara took one small sip, then another. It was sweet, fruity, smooth, cold. Her chest warmed slightly. She relaxed. Then the music changed. A remix. Something with heavy bass and seductive vocals. Lola grabbed her wrist. "Come, dance." "No, Lola, wait. Tonight you're not Amara the married ghost. You're Amara the baddie." And before she could think, Amara was on the dance floor. At first she moved shyly, hands low, shoulders stiff. She was trying not to look awkward. But then another sip of her drink kicked in, and her body just let go. She started moving, slowly at first, a sway, a bounce. Then her hips caught the beat. She laughed, actually laughed. Eyes closed, hands in the air, body moving freely for the first time in forever. Men around started noticing. One tried to dance behind her. She ignored him. Another tried to hold her waist. She pushed his hand gently and turned away. She wasn't here for anyone. She wasn't here to impress. She just wanted to feel something. From the booth upstairs, Lawson sipped his whiskey quietly. His black shirt was folded at the sleeves, silver watch gleaming under the lights. He had been bored all night. The same music, the same girls forcing fake laughter, the same empty noise. He had come to the club to celebrate his divorce. Then he saw her. At first, she was just another girl in a green dress. Then he looked again. She was different. She danced like nobody was watching. Her dress hugged her, but not in a desperate way. Her joy wasn't loud. It was deep, real. She moved like she hadn't danced in years, and tonight she was dancing for her life. Lawson leaned forward. "Who is she?" he asked the bodyguard beside him. "Which one, sir?" "The one in green, the one that's glowing, dancing like the world belongs to her." The man squinted. "I'll go find out." "No, I'll go myself." Lawson stood and descended the stairs, eyes never leaving the girl on the dance floor. He moved through the crowd, ignoring the women that smiled at him, parting the sea of dancers until he stood just behind her. Amara felt it before she saw him. That calm heat, that tall shadow, that stillness in the middle of the chaos. She turned her head slightly. He stood there, not too close, not too far. She couldn't see his face clearly. The lights were dancing too fast, but his scent hit first. Warm, clean, confident, like power wrapped in silence. "You dance like the world doesn't exist," he said, voice deep and smooth. She smiled over her shoulder. "Maybe it doesn't. Not tonight." There was something about his voice that tickled her chest. He stepped a little closer. She didn't step back. They started dancing. Not together, not separate, just in rhythm. She moved. He followed. Their bodies found a flow. It wasn't sexual. It wasn't romantic. It was familiar, like her body had met his before. Lola spotted them and nearly dropped her drink. "Amara? Who's that?" Amara giggled. "I don't know, but I don't want to stop." "Are you crazy? You don't even know his name." Amara shrugged. "He feels safe." Lola's jaw dropped. "Amara, don't." But Amara turned to the stranger and said, "Let's go." Lawson didn't ask where. He just nodded. They left the club together, hand in hand. Lola chased after her, panicking. "Send me your location, oh! Use protection! I'm serious, Amara, don't let love enter your eye." Amara laughed and waved over her shoulder. "I'll be fine." She climbed into the man's black SUV, not knowing his name. He looked at her. "Are you sure?" She nodded. "I've never been more sure of anything." The hotel was quiet, clean, cold. She stood by the window, staring at the lights of Lagos. He watched her from behind, slowly unbuttoning his shirt. "I've never done this before," she whispered without turning. Lawson paused. "You've never what?" She turned around. Her hands were shaking, her eyes wet but sure. "I've never been with a man. I was married, but we never—" He stepped forward, gently. "Then why me?" She smiled weakly. "Because you feel safe. I can't explain it." Lawson reached for her hand, pulled her in, kissed her like he already knew her soul. Clothes dropped. He was gentle. She was trembling, but she didn't stop him. That night, she gave him everything, and he gave her the one thing he never gave anyone else, his softness. They fell asleep tangled in each other, her head on his chest, his arm around her waist, neither of them knowing that he had just slept with the same woman he divorced, and she had just given her body to the man who avoided her like a disease for the past 2 years, even on their wedding day, the same man whose name was still on the papers, folded neatly in her handbag. Thank you for watching. This is not the end. What happens now when Lawson and Amara finally realize who they are to each other? Will they go their separate ways or will they find love? If you want us to continue with the next episode, drop a comment saying next episode down below. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. See you in the next one.